my besties, welcome to today's video. In this video, I am getting out of my comfort zone and reading 3 books in genres that I typically do not read. I read 1 sci-fi book, 1 mystery thriller, and 1 nonfiction book in hopes of just getting out of my comfort zone and hopefully finding some new favorite genres. So with that, I gave you me from earlier this week when I was trying to decide which book to read first. Okay, I just got home from Pilates, but before I shower and get ready for the day, I want to clean the entire apartment, and a cleaning day always calls for an audiobook. So I'm trying to decide which one of these I want to listen to while I clean. It's a super gloomy, rainy day out, so I feel like either of these would be fun to read on this gloomy day. This one is available for me to listen to on Libby, and this one I could use my Audible credit to listen to. So I don't really know what I want to do. Maybe I'll start the Ministry of Time first, so I can return the audiobook to the library as soon as possible. Oh my gosh, Emily Henry has a blurb on the front. Electric. I loved every second. I hope you love every second too, Emily. Oh, my hair looks crazy. It's time for a Midway update because we are 52% into the Ministry of Time. As you guys saw, after I cleaned the apartment while listening to this, I sat down for a little bit and listened to it while reading the book. Jacket is off, of course, because reading a hardcover with a dust jacket on is just masochistic. Is that how you say that word, masochistic? Is that even a word? Anyways, you guys know what I mean. Reading a hardcover with a dust jacket on, not a good time. But to start off my halfway update, I am really enjoying this book. I feel like I low-key want to try and finish it today, which is crazy because it's definitely not super fast-paced, but it has me very engaged. At the very beginning of the book, it lets you know that it takes place in the near future where the British government has discovered time travel, and they are using the scientific advancement to go back in time, take people who have died in history, and then bring them to present day to try and integrate them into present day society. And how they perform this time travel is never really discussed, at least it hasn't been so far. We just know that in this book, they can time travel. We also haven't really figured out why this program is doing what they're doing. Our main character for a little bit thinks that maybe it's because they're gonna try and stop bad things from happening in history, but her boss quickly corrects her. I liked what she said actually. She was like, something along the lines of, when you think about changing history, what you're really trying to change is the future. I totally butchered that. Kaylee Bradley wrote it much more eloquently. I'm really enjoying her writing, really enjoying the way she describes things, the way she paints pictures, and the way she's developed all of these characters. Our main character is nameless, and she works for the program that is bringing people from history into the present day, and she is a bridge, which basically means she is helping someone from history adapt to today's times. And she is pretty trusting in the system, pretty trusting in the company. We're starting to uncover the fact that maybe this program's motives are a bit sinister and what they're doing is pretty inhumane. So I'm very intrigued to see how that aspect of the plot is going to unfold. But basically the story is told, we'll get 1 chapter in the perspective of our main character, and it almost seems like we're reading her diary, like we're reading her remembering these things that happened, but it is in first person. And then we'll get a chapter that is told in third person, but it's basically telling us what happened in our other main character's history. The guy who gets brought from history to present day, his name is Graham. And so those chapters are kind of telling us what he was experiencing before he was time traveled. I'm very interested to see if, as his timeline progresses, we're gonna get to see a scene of how they grabbed him from history and brought him to present day, because from what I've gathered, it was a very traumatic experience. But yeah, like I said, I'm really enjoying this book, really enjoying the author's writing. Definitely feeling a bit more fiction vibes with a little sprinkling of sci-fi. So it's not too far out of my comfort zone, to be honest. But maybe that's just a good way to ease into this video with something that's not too far out of my comfort zone. We're on chapter 6 now, and I'm excited to keep reading. I forgot to add honey. Okay, it's still good, but I would have preferred some honey. Okay, we're gonna add a little bit of maple syrup. I like to add the sweetener in with the hot water before I add it to the ice because I feel like it melts everything and blends everything down nicely, but we're gonna try this. Okay, yum. Also, how cute is this cup from Anthropology? Hello, my besties. Coming at you from the floor for this clip because I was just sitting here doing my makeup and I like the lighting down here, so why not? As you saw, this morning I started The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, but before we get into this one, I have to talk about this book because I finished it last night. The last time I checked in with you, I was about halfway through this book, but in the second half of the book, we had a bit of a romance unfold, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. It ended up being so gut-punching. In that same vein, the author's note at the very end of this book was so fascinating. I had no idea that, you know what, I'm not actually gonna tell you what the author's note says because I enjoyed being surprised by what it kind of reveals at the very end of the book, so that if you wanna read this book, you can still have that same experience. But just know that the author's note at the very end adds such an interesting element to the entire story. Yeah. I clearly thoroughly enjoyed this. I read it all in a day. It's definitely not a 5-star read for me, so I think I'm gonna rate it 4 stars, maybe 4 point something. I think at the very end of this video, I will go back through and give my final ratings for all the books. But yeah, like I said previously, this book definitely, at least in my opinion, read kind of like a fiction book with some sci-fi elements and then some romance elements as well in the second half. So it didn't feel super out of my comfort zone, but it was still a nice little step out of the typical genres that I read. I think taking that little step out of my comfort genres really paid off because, like I keep saying, I really, really liked this book. It was just so fascinating and interesting, and I feel like that's just the best way to describe what this book was. It was fascinating. Then yeah, as you guys saw, I started The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Dust jacket is once again obviously off. I've read the first 89 pages, which is like almost a third into the book, and honestly, I feel like I could keep reading this, but I think I'm gonna stop here for today. I kind of want to read just like smaller chunks of this book each day because I feel like that will help the information in the book sink in better. But if you haven't heard about this book, I feel like so many people have heard about it because Mel Robbins and her podcast are just popping off right now. Mel Robbins is a super well-known motivational speaker, and she wrote this book about her super popular Let Them Theory, which is essentially just letting go of the feeling of needing to control other people and in turn focusing on what you yourself can control. The letting go of control is the let them aspect. The second half of this theory is the let me side of things, which is kind of like the regaining control of what you actually can control, which the only thing that you can control is yourself. Which, if you're a people pleaser, if you are an eldest daughter, that can be really hard. So I feel like this book is super good for me to read. It's all things that I know. Like, I know in my day-to-day life, I try to control everything, and I know that there's no sense in doing that because the only thing that I can control is myself. But it's just really nice to read this book, to reinforce those beliefs, and to just remind myself to, as she says, let them. So yeah, I've been using my handy dandy pen to underline some things that I find important. The most recent thing that I underlined was, you can't control what someone thinks, so there's no reason why you should be afraid of it or allow it to stop you anymore. Your time is way more valuable than that because you've got important things to do with this wild and precious life. Yeah, I'm finding this book to be a very helpful reminder. My one gripe with like self-help books, I guess, why I don't read them very often, is they can feel very, very repetitive sometimes. Like, the whole idea of this book is pretty simple, but there's like 300 pages talking about it. But I guess the point of iterating information is so that it will sink in. And I don't know, I'm not finding this book too redundant yet. But yeah, as I said, I'm gonna keep reading a little bit each day. Maybe I'll read it in the mornings so I can like start my mornings on a good positive note. I feel like that's a good idea. But I will see you guys when I either have an update on this book or I start our third book, Rock, Paper, Scissors. Hello besties, it is now the next day. I've gotten the majority of my to-do list done for the day, and I'm really just in the mood to escape into a book that's gonna make me forget about the real world, and I feel like a really good mystery and thriller has the potential to do that. So we are gonna start Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Another step out of my comfort zone is reading a mystery thriller book, and I've heard really good things about this one. So I hope I enjoy it. I actually don't even know what it's about. Okay, so it's about a couple. Adam has facial blindness and Amelia is sick of feeling unseen. And they win a weekend getaway to Scotland, and it might be just what their marriage needs. But they didn't randomly win this trip. One of them is lying, and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. Oh my god, are they gonna kill each other? 10 years of marriage, 10 years of secrets, and an anniversary they will never forget. Let's get into it. I should have known from the moment that I opened this book and it started off with a picture of a dog. I hate when there's dogs in thrillers. I'm stressed. Anyways, I'm on page 139, which I feel like is almost halfway through. Well, besties, my apologies for the lack of clips, but I did end up reading this one in one sitting, which is honestly exactly what I was wanting. I really wanted to just binge a book. I feel like this was, but at the same time wasn't, the perfect book to binge. Basically, all the chapters alternate perspectives. You get chapters from the main couple's perspective, so we have some chapters in Amelia's perspective and some chapters in Adam's perspective. And then about 70 pages in, we start to get chapters from a third character's point of view. And we don't really know how this third character is interconnected into everything. Obviously that gets explained at the end. But it felt like the first like really big chunk of this book was a lot of really slow buildup. Obviously you're on edge because everything that's going on is creepy, and maybe this is common for mysteries and thrillers, I just don't read them very much, but there wasn't like any plot twist or like excitement to me until the very end of the book. I feel like we got 3 plot twists like back to back to back. And don't get me wrong, the main plot twist was awesome. It really got me, and I feel like Alice Feeney wrote this book super, super well, because when I went back and looked through, there was little hints along the entire way of the book. Even on the very first page, there was hints about the big plot twist that I didn't pick up on. So I thought that was really fun. I guess what I'm just trying to say is a lot of this book felt very slow to me, and then at the very end it was like boom, 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 plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. You know? But yeah, this was a fun read. It was fun to mix it up, but it wasn't my favorite thing ever, and I don't really know if it's just this book or if it's the genre for me. But anyways, now we only have one more book left to finish, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. So I will catch you guys when I continue that book. So if I'm really enjoying it and finding it to be like a really good book for me to read at this point in my life. Hello you guys, I've just finished up with the morning coffee. What? I haven't had coffee yet today, clearly. What I was trying to say is I just finished off with a morning Pilates class and now I'm at a coffee shop. I tell you, got to meet me at the coffee shop. But I have brought The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins with me to read while I drink my coffee here. Basically, yesterday I tried to read a big chunk of this book, but I ended up reading 20 pages and then picking up Book Lovers by Emily Henry and finishing my reread of that instead. I was just not in the mood to read nonfiction yesterday, and Book Lovers was just really hitting. But yeah, to be so for real, I'm still not really in the mood to read nonfiction. I kind of wish I had a fiction book that I was taking with me to this coffee shop to read, but that is not the point of this video. Like I mentioned, I'm now halfway through The Let Them Theory. On page 152, it says, "You've just finished the first half of this book. In the next section, we'll explore how to use the theory to navigate the delicate dynamics of adult relationships." So I guess the first half was kind of like understanding the theory, and then the second half is going to be like the applications into your life, which I'll be interested to see how helpful I find that, because I feel like we've already dissected so much of this theory in 152 pages. So yeah, I'm gonna go get a coffee, bring this book with me, bring you guys with me. Hopefully we can finish the last half of this book today, and then I can go back to reading fiction books all the time. Okay. I bought parking for an hour, so that means I need to read for an hour.
Meet me here at this time tomorrow. There's something you need to know. got used to see you as a friend, but deep inside there's something else. I know. Ooh, the world seems so hollow.
Okay guys, it's a little while later, but I've finally finished the Let Them theory, and I realized that it's literally exactly a week since I started filming this video. Started filming it last Wednesday, today is Tuesday. This was a true week of reading books outside of my comfort zone. So let's go back through them and go over my final ratings and thoughts. We started off with The Ministry of Time by Kaylee Ann Bradley. I was a little bit surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. It wasn't really what I was expecting, like I previously said. I felt like it was mainly fiction with elements of romance and sci-fi. Because of that, it didn't feel super out of my comfort zone, which is probably why it was my favorite book that I read this past week, but I think I've decided to give this one 4 stars. Then I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Even though I did read this one in one sitting, I felt like the beginning of it was super slow. And honestly, the main part that I really enjoyed was that one big main plot twist. I thought that was really fun, really smart. But the lead up to it just, I don't know, wasn't quite it for me. So this book, I feel like I'm gonna rate 3 stars. That just feels right, that feels clean. And then we read our nonfiction pick, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I found the first half of this book super impactful and super relevant to things that I'm going through in my life right now. The second half was a little bit less relevant to me personally, so because of that, it did feel a bit dragged out. I think this book would be so beneficial for so many people to read, especially those who have a tendency to be people pleasers. But I do feel like this is a book that everyone can get something out of. Like I was saying, I didn't get that much out of the last half of the book, and honestly, if I wasn't filming this video, I probably would have just DNF'd it. Because when it comes to nonfiction books, I feel like I read them to find like practical things that I can implement into my own life. And if I'm not getting that out of a nonfiction book, why would I keep reading it? Yeah, I really don't know what to rate this, and I kind of just want to not rate it, since I feel like the scale of rating nonfiction books is so different from the scale of reading fiction books, at least in my mind. So for now, we're just not gonna rate the Let Them theory. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me read books outside my comfort zone for a week. It's always fun to mix up what I'm reading, so overall it was a good time, but I'm not eager to do that again if we're being real. I'm ready to open like a fantasy book or a romance book or something like that. I'm sure my next read will either be fantasy or romance. If you made it to this point in the video, comment a rock emoji. I was trying to think of what emoji to comment, and I looked at this book, so we're gonna say comment a rock emoji. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye!